Welcome to Smooches Podcast. I'm your host, Antrell. I created the Smooches Podcast to help empower, inspire, and help you find your true authentic self through storytelling and laughter. So let's get inspired. Let's listen to some good storytelling. And if you're ready, let's get into the podcast. Smooches! Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, Smooches Podcast. I'm your host, Antrell. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome to all of those who may have just stumbled across the podcast for the very first time. Hello to all of those who continue to come back and listen. So let's get into this podcast episode. I have been talking to a lot of people who have been struggling with the workplace and not feeling so good about the workplace. Feeling that the workplace can be toxic and just having bad vibes around it, and that it makes them feel unhappy. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this on this podcast episode because I know the workplace can be a lot. Let's face it, sometimes we have very rough work environments and it is a struggle just to get through a day, right? And so I had a tough week last week, and this what made this come full circle for me because I had a rough week and I wanted to share how I got through that work week that was rough for me. So starting off, we start our mornings fairly early. Some of us, and even if you start your work shift in the middle of the day, end of the day, third shift, possibly second shift, or whatever that might be for you, it is still a process to get yourself together and get into work, no matter what time of the day that you are working. And I feel like to do this is a lot, but then if you also have to enter into not so perfect work environments, this could also be very rough as well. And then to be able to do this every single day is amazing, right? It's absolutely amazing. And I know that you get paid to come into work and all of that. Yes, I understand that. But why does work have to be so make you feel unhappy? Why do we just have to be so sad some of the time working? Why can't it just be like, oh my goodness, I feel good, I want to go in, all of that kind of stuff? It's not like that. We start our day, right? We start our day, and it is a struggle when you first hear that alarm clock, right? That is like a trigger. Am I right? That is a trigger, and it's like, oh my goodness. Right? So then you have to go through all of that. You get yourself together. You head out, and just to get in the car and find out, I have no gas. I have no gas. Now I have to go to the gas station. I have to fuel up. That's another added extra layer, right? So now I want my coffee. I didn't have time possibly to make coffee. So I want to go and stop at somewhere to go and get me some coffee or maybe breakfast if I have not packed that. And that is stressful too, right? And don't let your order be wrong, right? So that is added stress. And now, you haven't even got on the road really to the workplace. So now you're on the road to the workplace and you have to deal with all the madness that comes with driving. Then you finally get to the workplace and your conditions, you realize, are just not that great. And the environment that you're going to be in is going to drive you nuts for the rest of the day. So all of that you have to deal with, and you're just wondering, when does it ease up? Well, the easing up of it all is when you get the paycheck, but that's if the paycheck is worth it these days. Like, let's be honest. It is just a never-ending cycle of not being happy, being unhappy. How do we get through this? Well, I did have a tough week, like I said, but there are a few things that I rely on. Two things heavily: me having boundaries. I have to have boundaries in place because here's the thing: I try to leave work where it is. I don't try to bring it home with me. I try to leave it at the door because here's the thing: once I bring it home with me, what's going to happen is that I don't know, I'm just going to not never disconnect from work, and I'm going to keep up all that work stuff off hours. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I'm going to tell you, workplaces are getting very, very sneaky, right? They're getting very, very sneaky with things. They're developing group chats. This is wild because they don't want you to turn it off now. And who's getting paid to answer these texts? Not me. So I'm trying to create boundaries there as well, when it comes to just disconnecting. And also a routine. A routine is key for me. I need a routine to help me continue with that work week because without a routine, my whole week will be in shambles, y'all. It will be very bad for me. And man, you'll be calling off. Well, I know I would be calling off or doing something of that sort because I'm not feeling like I am all the way organized or structured in my mind or in together. So that makes me feel a little chaotic. And when I feel chaotic, man, my week is going to go very bizarre. And to avoid that, I need a routine. So that is two things I definitely want you to take away is building a routine for yourself and as well creating boundaries. That is so important. I feel like if you do not, it never ends well. It never ends well. You have to have boundaries. And then two, if you can separate some things. I know there's a lot of drama sometimes that goes on in the workplace and we can't help it, but it's there. But we can separate ourselves from it. You absolutely can separate yourself from it by creating your own space and staying to and out of the mess. Staying to yourself and out of the mess and not really getting involved with that. That is one way you can do it. And if you have a work office, creating your own peaceful space, however you need to do that. And then if you have cubicles or something like that of that nature, oh man, you're going to have to work it in as best as you can because that unfortunately is going to be the environment that you're in. So you're going to have to work around that, right? As best as you absolutely can. And for those who are maybe just freelancers or things like that, and your workspace is everywhere, that routine you're going to have to hold on to very tightly. Without that routine, you could feel a lot of the days upset, unhappy, all of the above. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely struggled that week, but those two things helped me heavily to get back into the flow of things. And also, what I did, I definitely had put in a treat in place for myself after work because I feel like you have to do that, especially when you're having a rough week. You want to put things that will make you feel good in place so that you can continue the week, right? That's so that you can continue the week because it makes it more tolerable and not so painful. So I feel like rewarding yourself definitely helps and makes that next day more tolerable and makes you more able to get into that next week. And also, what really was, I feel like, making me unhappy or making me disconnected was that my sleep hygiene was not together. I felt like I was doing a lot of the things that were out of the norm. So, staying up possibly a little later, staying into that book a little longer, and no, especially when you know that you have to get up and you have to get your day started pretty early and you are going to be possibly grumpy if you stay up longer than expected or normally that you would go to bed. So you have to check your sleep hygiene routine because that is so important. That can definitely have an effect on your mood. So you want to keep that in check as well. But other than that, I feel like we have to work, we have to make money until we hit the lottery or until we figure out how we're going to work for ourselves. We have to work within a work environment or until we find something else that we absolutely love. We have to figure out how to make these things work for ourselves. And it doesn't have to be that unpleasant. We only can control what we can control. So if we have control over whatever that might be to give us peace, we have to definitely dig in deep or dive in deep to make ourselves tolerate our jobs a little bit more. So that was really all that I wanted to talk about because there's so much that's going on right now. You have a lot of people who are being laid off from work. You have a lot of people who are coming from working from remote back into the office, and this can be difficult for those people. Um, a lot is happening. So I wanted to talk about this, why the workplace was making us unhappy, and give some tips on how we can get through some of these tough times because some of us have no choice but to deal with these different employers that we work for, and how do we get through it until the employers find out and figure out I need to make this a little bit more peaceful or pleasant for my employees. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. Please follow us on all social media platforms, which is podcast. Email the podcast, which is podcast@gmail.com. I would like to thank our editor, Legend, who is on Spotify. And please leave a comment. Here we want to help each other because we need to do that. If you have some suggestions that you can provide to someone else, how to get through a tough week of work, or a year or a month of work, and how you get through it, please leave that comment because it can definitely help someone else out. And here on this podcast, we definitely want you to live your best life. We want to empower you to do that. So until the next time, I will see you on the next episode. Smooches.